Hey, good morning, Briana.
Good morning, Alexis.
Hey, how are you, girly?
I'm doing well. I can't complain. I had a facial yesterday, so my face is glowing. I'm starting a new regimen they gave me, so I just feel refreshed.
Oh, that's so good. Good stuff. You got it. Self-care is a big thing, which leads us to part of our conversation today. So you guys know that this is Campaign P31, a platform for women like you who are chosen and set apart. And part of being chosen and set apart is understanding stuff about yourself. Sometimes that might be in the form of what you need for self care. And self care is not just the external stuff like facials and hair and nails that we always do. And then what's stripped away from us during the pandemic. And now we're slowly easing back into those habits. But self care is also how you care for your soul, how you care for your innermost secret spaces. And so we created this master class called Beauty and Forgiveness. Some of y'all know the story, but if you don't, go back, check it out on the website. You can read all about it. There's tons of videos on YouTube. So I invite you to do that. But right now, we're going to get into it. So, Briana, tell me what is going on with you. Introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about yourself. What's going on with you? And then we're going to get into the good stuff.
Nice. So my name is Briana Denise Crowe. If you don't know, I love my middle name, so I always say it. I am a youth minister and a comedian, so I am always on the go, always doing new things. Sometimes I'm hanging out with the kids, sometimes I'm hanging out with adults. But essentially, I just kind of like making people smile, and that's what I do. I'm excited to continue this journey. The Lord is changing some things around in my life, so I don't know what youth ministry will look like for me or what He's wanting me to do in that era. So excited, nervous, but we're gonna follow what the Lord said.
Amen.
But yeah, that's pretty much me. I was like, I love making people smile. I'm a family oriented person, and not just like birth family. I was like, anybody that I feel like is a part of my community, my circle, is my family, and I just love spending time with people. Quality time is one of my love languages. So I'm like, yes,
I didn't know that.
yes, quality time and words of affirmation.
Come on, words of affirmation. That's me. But I
Mm-hmm.
gotta watch that. Sometimes it make you thirsty. You know, you can't help
Yeah,
but get
I was
thirsty.
like, it's quality time first, and then words of affirmation, and then acts of service. Physical touch is very low, so
Typically with women, it is.
I was like, okay.
I don't know. Men is always number one at the
Yeah,
top.
I'm
Like,
like, okay, you don't want nothing else? Like, I'm just kidding.
listen, it's a whole situation. Okay, so
That
I want to dive into. So it's been like 6 weeks since Beauty and Forgiveness graduation has been over. Almost 6 weeks,
it's
right?
so fast.
How would you? So I'm gonna take you back. Let's go back. How would you briefly describe the program for a woman who is thinking about joining, but having a little bit of reservation and maybe some hesitation in making that final decision? What
Hurt.
would you say? How would you briefly describe the program?
It is more than just women praying. I feel like that was like my thought process. I was like, oh, it's just another life group. Like we're just gonna be praying and, reading the Bible, I guess. And it's actually so much more than that. Yes, those things are very much done and those are very important, and like it is the core of the foundation and like what is happening in the program. But the program itself is really kind of therapeutic. Sometimes there is actual therapy happening, but it is like a very therapeutic process. I think unlearning, which a lot of people have to do, especially as believers. Sometimes we feel like we have to act or move a certain way, especially like now that we're
Mm.
saved, or we might have been saved for a long time. So it's like we feel like we're doing the Christian thing when really it's like the Christian thing is to really be honest, be truth, walk in truth, walk in forgiveness, walk in love. And sometimes that means unpacking some stuff that you done let sizzle, simmer down.
Sizzle,
And it's
not
like,
settle, but sizzle.
yeah, I was like, you let it just sizzle and it's still simmering. Like it ain't off. You just letting it be in your life and you acting like it ain't
Mm.
real. So I think that this program though is really it's to help you unlearn and to unpack, but also to push you towards Christ in a way that I think sometimes life groups or sometimes like, just doing devotionals on your own just doesn't do. Because it's like I could read stuff all day, but am I really asking the questions, unpacking it? Am I really spending time doing that journaling? And I think, we say we're going to do it, we're like, I'm going to start this tomorrow. And it's like this class is giving you an opportunity to really do it at 5 a.m. in the morning. Like, you know what I'm saying?
You can't move to the next step.
You know what I'm saying? You can't.
Until you did the previous.
Be locked until it was some
and
nights
it all builds on each other.
And I'm a night owl, so there was some nights where I was up like 3 hours just like filling out stuff like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy that I'm unpacking all this in the middle of the night, but here we are, like it's happening, whatever. So I think it's just more than just a life group or a Bible study, which is I feel like people think that's what it is, when really it's really you're mastering how to have true, genuine relationship with God, like how to ask Him for that forgiveness, seek His wisdom, and then be transformed to create habits that you can continue on. So it's not, I guess that's what I was saying.
So who would you say you were before you entered the program?
Before I entered the program, I was definitely a young woman who was really walking in a lot of shame and guilt, and also secrecy. I felt like everything was just a secret. I felt like, I couldn't really tell people how I felt, who I was, what I had been through, things I had done. Now, granted, your testimony, the Lord will lead you to share when it's time to share. You don't have to go run and tell everybody. But I think before I just felt like I couldn't even share my testimony because it would dim who I was now. And that's crazy because I'm like, well, you wouldn't be who you were now without that. So it's like, but I was still navigating and walking in that fear of just like, losing people or people judging me, or not really walking in the fullness of like, Lord, did you really forgive me? Because like, honey, it's a little dirty. Like, I know you said you cleanse, but like, do you cleanse? Like, so I was having to like learn how. I was just a person who wasn't forgiven, even though I was definitely forgiven. Like, that's what the word says and that's what God says, but I felt like I was not forgiven, or I wasn't walking in that. And then ultimately that comes from just, again, the secrecy or the lies or the things I damped or hid for a long time, just with my family, and even past relationships, that I just kind of was like, it happened, it's okay, like whatever. When I'm like, did you really unpack that?
That's so good. I think because, part of the reason why I create the program is because I recognize that people have issues with forgiveness in 3 categories. It's either forgiving themselves, forgiving somebody else, or forgiving God, which is the big kahuna, right?
Yeah.
And so, but they equally, if you have unforgiveness in any one of those 3 areas, it's like you're stuck. You can't really go for it because either you're keeping yourself back because you can't forgive yourself, or you're holding yourself back because you're stuck on whether or not someone else apologizes, or you're unclear about why God made a decision He made, which He's totally entitled to, and you have to deal with it. So, like, I think isolating that and then getting to the truth of it. Like, shame is not a part of your it's not a part of your benefits package as a Christian.
Accurate. No.
And like like pulling the scales off your eyes and off of your mind and getting to the heart of who God is and what He has in store for you based on what this word says.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's so good to me. Okay, so what was your turning point? And what was the greatest moment of impact in the program? Do you kind of remember when it all started to shift?
Honestly, I would say that my like big shift happened the last week, like the night before our graduation.
Really?
Like, yeah, like I feel like there was a desire, like I felt there were like many things that happened throughout the program. Like there were breakthroughs and moments of just realization, and like me having time with the Lord and really like being more comfortable praying out loud, or like, like really just like, praying over the word and saying like things that I hadn't done or experienced in a long time, and things that I would like to continue to like implement in my life is like, oh, like I was practicing just walking around my house praying. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I never did that before. Like before I might have like said some stuff in my head and stuff like that. But, I would be walking around just praying out loud, like praying like, rebuking demons. like I'm like spirits of things that I was struggling with that I was like, no, I'm not allowing that in here. So like I'll still do those things now, but I think the biggest breakthrough happened the night before graduation because, well, the people who will take the class, there's a moment where you have to literally kind of tell your truth and walk in your truth. And I felt like throughout the class, like a lot of the women were sharing their testimonies and like kind of giving their experiences. And I was still just trying to figure out mine. Like I was trying to figure out like not my testimony, but I was trying to figure out like the core of what started what transpired what, and then also why I was still holding on to those things. So I feel like it all kind of came together when I had to actually tell my story. And it was like, and I wrote it and everything, but when I physically had to say it, I feel like that's when I was like released from the shame, released from the guilt. And I was like, this is what beauty and forgiveness looks like. This is what walking in freedom looks like. This is what it is. It's like that might come out as tears, that might come out as laughs, that might come out as, vomit of information. But it was really awesome just to finally say it and these are women who some of the women I attended church with, some who I never met before, or some who I might know through other people. So for me to just speak my truth and like not be ashamed of it. And, it was a safe space, yes, but I was like, okay, if I could do it in a safe space, I can kind of do that in any space, like, because the more I say it, the more I get comfortable with it.
Yeah.
The less the enemy has a hold over me, and the less shame that I feel about it, and that's freedom. And
that's so good. So would you say that the way that you function now is walking in that freedom, or like what would you say like what has changed most about you?
I would say that what has changed most about me is not so much walking in the freedom, but understanding the freedom. I was like, because I feel like I was already free. Like I was free whenever like I gave my life to Christ, but understanding what that freedom was. I was like, because I knew I was free, but like I still was like trying to compare, trying to be other people, trying to do my Christian walk the way other people did. And now it's like understanding that the freedom is literally me seeking wisdom from the Father. So that means like it really literally means that sometimes I'm not going to agree with a lot of the times we're not going to agree with what's going on in the world. James tells us that very clearly. Like, you cannot be a friend of this world and a friend of Jesus. Like it just
don't really work.
So understanding that one, because I'm like, if I'm now free in him, there's just going to be things that don't make sense to the world, that will not line up with the world. And even when I'm having these experiences, I was like, I feel like it's just me understanding that, like, I don't know the answers, but I know someone who does. Before, I felt like I had to figure out how to be a Christian. I had to figure out, like, what does looking holy look like? And I'm like, now, no, for real. Like, I was like, I got to dress holy. I got to, what I'm saying? I wore a crop top. I'm going to hell. Like, and that's not the case. But now it's understanding that that freedom comes from Christ. So now I have the ability to have a relationship with God. And in that relationship, the more I seek him, the more I ask questions, the more I will grow, the more conviction I will feel, not because of condemnation. Like, it's literally the Holy Spirit transforming me. Yeah. So that means that it's not that I don't want to wear the crop top. Like, I still might, but I also might wear a high-waisted skirt. Like, what I'm saying? Like, so it's like, what I'm saying? I'm like, or there might be a time where I may not want them, but either way, like, that's me working on my relationship with him, and I'll get there. If he says something to me and I feel like it's one of those things that the more I do stuff, the more I engage with people, I'm learning that, okay, let me not talk to you first. Like, I was like, let me go ask God, because I'm lost and I'm in confusion. Or even if I move and do something and I didn't seek God first, I was like, there's never this idea that I have to stay here. I was like, oh, I have freedom. Like, Lord, okay, I made a decision. Like, do I need to keep doing this or should I move on? Because I know I moved in here thinking like this was the thing you told me to do when really I didn't confront you. So now that I'm here, you want me to stay, you want me to move. And if he say move, move. If he say stay, stay. Like, it's literally that simple. And I feel like before I wasn't navigating that way because I felt like I wasn't forgiven. Like, I felt like he didn't really want to guide me because he was like, I know what you did. So like, I can't really use you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you can be in the kingdom, but you can't be like in the kingdom. Like, you like
you got eternal life, but that's all you got.
Yeah, like you don't get to be used.
On in here.
Like you can't really talk to me. So
no, so, yeah. That's not the kind of God we serve.
No, not at all.
It's not the kind of God. And I'm so glad that one of the most valuable things that I heard you say just now is that I no longer ask people first what they think. That is so much freedom because there are so many people around you. And the truth of the matter is, like, your most, even the closest relationships, they do not hold any weight in comparison to the Father. Like, we sometimes accidentally or unintentionally put people on the throne of our heart, and the only person who has the power and the perfection to be able to guide with an all-knowing, all-seeing perspective is God. It's God. There is no relationship, not your mother, not your father, not your spouse, not your children, that should ever be sitting in that role. I absolutely love that. That's true freedom because now you can move and shake with your God GPS on the inside of you, Holy Spirit, who will lead and guide you into all truth. And it's also there to comfort you. That's what he said. I'm going to send in a comforter. So when it gets hard, you can lean wholly all your weight on him.
Yeah.
And we've been like, struggling.
I can do it. I'll struggle by myself. I'm like,
try to get some human interaction in there, just messing stuff up.
Messing it all the way up.
Messing it up. Okay, so here's the good stuff. The last part of this, I've enjoyed hearing the recap of your journey. I want to know, since then, what's your update? What's been going on? Why do you think, I'm sorry, I guess, what's the update in terms of how you're doing now? Why do you think it's happening this way? And what are you now doing differently 6 weeks post-class?
So I think the biggest update would just be, again, like I said, the navigating of understanding, like seeking God first and not people, has been a big change because it's like sometimes I'll get so caught up in, like, I was one of those people that I'm like, okay, I'm going to do better. I'm going to start calling people all the time. I'm going to reach out and talk to them. I'm going to have a system. And I was like, sometimes me praying for that person, and even if I don't speak to that person, me speaking to the Lord on their behalf is just as important. And I'm like, Lord, I don't know what's going on, and I'll reach out one day, but sometimes like I don't have the energy. So I was like, but I have the energy to talk to the Father, because that's different.
That's gonna happen anyway.
Yeah. So I was like, so I feel like I find myself realizing that having deeper relationships is not always necessarily having a call and talk to that person physically. It's really having a conversation with God, being like, hey, like, just want to bring up this child of yours. Like for some reason they were on my heart. I thought I'd bring it up. And that goes for like my parents too, like just trying to build a relationship with them, and just understanding too that sometimes like some things don't have to be spoken to have forgiveness, because sometimes people aren't there yet to process and walk in that. But I know, and I've written down, and I've let go of the animosity and the things in there. And it's so funny because like I'll have conversations with like my father particularly, and he's just like, like you I don't know, this just seemed like you just doing stuff, like it feels like you just always like moving and grooving. And he was like, I'm just worried. And I was like, Daddy, you don't have to be worried about me. I was like, I have a Father who sees me, who loves me. And I was like, and you love me too. And he like, what? So, but even in that moment, it's just like stuff like that, just being able to love on them. And, even when they try to be the God in my life, essentially, like when they're like, oh, like this would be helpful if you do this, if you do that. And I was like, it could be helpful. I was like, I don't think that's what the Lord's telling me, but like, I love that you want to help me. Like, I think that's great. I was like, you can always pray for me. Like, I think that's probably the biggest thing you can do. So having that realization, but then also the biggest shift is just, I'm so open to what God is saying that everything in my life is shifting literally right now. Like work, home, like I'm getting ready to go on a trip. And even though like, you know, COVID is on the rise, all these things, I'm just feeling all these things. And I'm like, I feel like, you know, Roe versus Wade being overturned, that impacted me a lot. And even those feelings, like all that's happening, I still was like, you know what, Lord, you have a plan. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you are ultimately in charge. Like, you knew everything that was going to happen. And even these situations that are bringing up things in my past and bringing up things that I struggled with, and even like concerns that I have, I was like, I'm learning the heart of who God is. And the heart of who God is really knowing his word, right? Knowing his relationship. Because I was like, when you have this relationship with him, you can unpack those questions because you're like, okay, cool. You know, allow for this to be overturned. I think that's like a thing that a lot of people are uncertain about. And I was like, especially someone in my position, I was like, but also I think it's a wake up call because I'm like, okay, cool. Like that's the thing you're going to use to like abolish this. Okay. Then also, what are people like? Because now you have no excuse but to show love and kindness and to, you know, because it's very clear. Because I was like, if you cared about these babies and you cared about this livelihood, I was like, okay, we got to now really show the walk of Christ.
Yes, that means we can't be judgmental when people come into the church, which is a spiritual hospital, broken. When they come in broken and needing different things that people need,
and even then,
we
I'm
can't
like,
be judgy.
and even if it's not the church, I was like, politics, all these things. I was like, all these people, I was like, who are making these decisions. If you are saying that it is because the Lord said it, I need you to show up in all those actions. Like I was like, I need to see Christ in all the things you do.
Come on.
And I was like, and that's something that I'm learning.
We'll have a whole talk show if we go into that. Listen.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like,
do the
that's
thing.
how
Is
I
what you're
felt
saying.
like that's probably the biggest turnover is like all this stuff because that is me. That's my story. That's who I am. And I'm like, Lord, well, who am I to say this and that? And I'm like, what I am is a woman that can provide. I am a woman that can pray. I am a woman that has a past. I am a woman that was forgiven. I am a woman that says like, okay, now let's see you put in the work. Like, you know what I'm saying? Where are y'all feeding these people? Where y'all? I was like, what about healthcare? I was like, voting, all of these things. I was like, it don't matter if we are not having a heart of God. Like if our heart is not filled with him, it's gonna show.
Oh,
and
yeah.
That's what I'm learning. I'm like,
your secrets will
gonna
seep.
Yes. And that's what I'm learning. So I was like, even though everything around me is going haywire, I was like, God is gonna reveal it. And I was like, and what I'm gonna do is when he said get out the way, honey, I'm about to get up out the way. I was like, it don't matter. I was like,
it's
I'll
only
be
obedient
and disgusted before I'll be burnt, busted, and disgusted to you before I be out here disobedient to him. So that's probably
and I love it. I love it. I love it because I y'all know, some of y'all know me, but some of y'all don't. And if you don't, you will find out very shortly that not only do I say this and teach this and share this, but I'm also living it. Yeah. And I live it as children's ministry director. I literally sat in a circle yesterday with children and I told them, hey, sometimes God asks us to do hard things. And those hard things require our obedience. And I asked them very clearly, just in the same way Briana just shared with you here, like, if the Lord asks you to turn left, which way are you turning? And they said left. I said, okay, good. Now, if the Lord asks you to go to Brazil, now where are you going? And they said, Brazil. I said, whatever he asks you for, you got to do the thing. And don't do it haphazardly or unintentionally. Don't do it. And as my mama used to say, half do it. Don't half do it. Go all the way. Yeah. Do it with zest and do it with zeal, understanding that the God of angel armies is backing you because you trust him at his word. And
Yeah.
so, Briana, I am so grateful that you took the time to hang out with me this morning, to do this recording, just to share with the people realistically and from the heart, like what we're talking about in beauty and forgiveness, the value of the course, how it's changed your life, how it's changed your pattern of behavior, not just temporarily, but you've experienced a life transformation, and how you continue to put that stuff into practice. And we do these little refreshers. Like right now, I don't know if you started your day one for the Bible study, but girl, if you haven't, read it. You're gonna laugh because the irony of what she's saying on day
Mhm.
one is a collective of what we just talked about these last 20 minutes. So, um, if you're interested in being or becoming a part of our community, I'd love to have you. I want you to go ahead and join our email list over at campaignp31.com. You can drop your email in there and also check out the details on the class itself. We'd love to have you. Registration is closing soon, so don't wait till the last minute. There's only
Don't
a
do it.
selected amount of seats, and you want to make sure you have one. All right. We
Yeah.
love you, and thank you so much for joining us today. See you around.